address these concerns as we go along. Okay, I think the main thing we are worried about is safety. How safe are the vaccine? Okay, and one of the things you always know that our vaccine development has been very slow, in a sense that you know usually 2 to 3 years. If somebody I think that there's a possibility of vaccine, this is the clinical phase. That means in the lab we test it on rats, we test it on monkeys and other animals. Okay, so it takes about 2 to 3 years before it goes into a clinical trial or phase 1, which is usually about up to about 10 people, not many. The idea is to first thing find safety, whether is the vaccine is safe or not. Secondly, is the dosage. How much of the vaccine to give? What's the maximum level on what is the minimum? Then when that take about 2 to 3 years, then they go on to phase 2. Phase 2, we have a larger number of people testing, okay, from about 10 to about 100, okay, or some use 100 to 1,000. Here, we already know the safety profile, we already know the dosage. So we continue to monitor the safety profile, but what we do now is we pick people from different population, for different demographic, sex, age, and all that, and see if we give them the vaccine, does it work or not? Okay, so we are looking for the efficacy, which takes another 2 to 3 years. Then after that, we go into the phase 3 trial. Phase 3 trial are the bigger one, 1,000 people to 10,000 people, where again, we are monitoring the safety profile. Then we are also monitoring the uh, effect or the efficacy. And it takes another 2 to 3 years. So by the time you finish the phase 3 trial, then you have to apply for approval. It takes about 1 to 2 years. Okay. And then you start manufacturing and marketing. That takes 1 to 2 years. So basically, development of a vaccine has been about 10 to 15 years. Okay. So one of the things that we are worried about is that is the uh, COVID vaccine, which is produced about 9 months, did they cut any corners or not? Okay, did they skip a few steps, shortcuts, and here and there? Okay, let me reassure you here and now that no, there was no cutting of corners. Okay, firstly is that the studies are done because we need to get the results. Okay, secondly is that the technology is already there. Okay, the RNA vaccine, Pfizer and Moderna, is not something that is they came out in 9 months. We already had the technology for about 20 years since the time of SARS. Remember, SARS is a close cousin of COVID, and we were looking for a vaccine for SARS. So we have developed the technology to make the vaccine for SARS. That's why the COVID vaccine was able to be done in 2 days, because we already have the template, and we have learned through our trying to make a vaccine for HIV and also the vaccine for Ebola. Okay, and we are making a vaccine for MERS. So all these are coronavirus. So we already have the technology in place. It's a matter of getting it out. And that is where during the pandemic, okay, President Trump or ex-President Trump started Operation Warp Speed, okay, which is to develop a COVID vaccine within 9 months. So in this project, what is important is that the US allocated $1.6 billion as a research grant fund. So suddenly they can do a lot of research. Okay, one of the problems facing scientists is that they cannot find money for research. That's why Ebola takes so long to develop, and because nobody want to fund Ebola. But suddenly now you have $1.6 billion US dollars. So we went into development, into phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. You find that the phase 3 studies are big studies. In the past, we talked about 5,000 people. Oh, very big study already. Now, phase 3 study is 40,000 people, 50,000 people. So much so that we actually have to start building factories to produce the vaccine for the trial. Because, I mean, how are you going to produce 40,000, 50,000 vaccines? Most labs cannot do it. So they start building factories already. So that means there is an accelerated speed, but not at the cost of the what. So we still have to get the data from this and be monitoring the data from this as they go along. Yes, there is a emergency approval for use. Okay, but the scientific uh, method, the scientific monitoring, and the scientific technique has not been abused. There is no shortcut taken. So that is the point I want to make. In any way, a way, the studies are also moot now because already 180 million doses has been given. So in other words, even phase 4 studies already started already. Okay, usually after you finish phase 3, you get the approval, then you start injecting the population, and then you study that. But that is already done. Okay, we already data for 4 to 6 months of vaccine, of people receiving the vaccine. Okay. Now here is just a short chart to show you that, yeah, we have uh, these are the different 47 candidates, and not all of them made it. You find that Sanofi and Merck will get knocked out. Only a certain number make it. Just to show that not all the vaccines succeed, and these are some of the vaccines that succeed. And you see that like Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Gamaleya, the Russian vaccine, and Sinopharm. The phase 3 studies, about 43,000 people, 30,000 people, okay, 12,000, 40,000, 31,000. We are talking about large number for phase 3. So that is significant. How about safety? Okay, uh, we the vaccine has been found to be safe. I think the major thing we are afraid of is the anaphylactic shock. Okay, we find that uh, some people react to the lipid that is used to cover the RNA. Okay, and we find that initially it was 11.1 allergic reaction per million dose in the Pfizer. Okay, but when the latest finding in January, that in the Pfizer is 4.7 million. 4.7 per million. That means you got about 5 allergic reaction per million dose. While in Moderna is 2.5 per million. Okay, so in other words, it is actually quite safe compared to penicillin. Now, if you give penicillin to a person, the anaphylactic reaction is 1 in per 5,000 dose. That's why we are very cautious about penicillin allergy. Influenza vaccine, 1 anaphylactic reaction in 1 per million dose. Okay. And we are talking about anaphylactic reaction. So these are the one. But not since the 180 million dose has been given, everybody has been watching like a hawk. Okay, the various centers like the MHRA, okay, which is a monitoring body, the regulatory body in UK, and the CDC in US have been watching. I mean, you get any reaction, sure everybody will know, because now with Facebook and with Telegram and you cannot hide bad news. But what is interesting is that US says no major complication. Now that is very interesting. I mean, to say that there's no major, I mean, most vaccine initially may have some major, but US says no major vaccination, and UK says no major, but extremely safe. In other words, nobody died from the vaccine. Okay, the only thing that you have to worry about is anaphylactic shock. So in terms of safety, okay, that is something to note. How about efficacy and effectiveness? Efficacy, you have to difference between efficacy and effectiveness. Efficacy is when we do it under control condition. For example, we're doing phase 2 and phase 3, where we inject the person in the hospital, we watch them, and we regularly follow them up. Okay, so that is the efficacy. So when say Moderna says 93%, 95%, okay, this, I think BBC is wrong to use effectiveness. It's actually what is the efficacy, because that is all these results are from phase 2 and phase 3 study. Okay, effectiveness is how it performs in real life. That means if you begin to vaccinate a population, and how many of the population develops COVID, and how many did not, and that is effectiveness. And I think we should be more concerned about the effectiveness of the vaccine rather than the efficacy. Okay, I have sort of summarized a table for you here, and you find that this is still efficacy. Okay, we have not get or rather we had a study I show you later of the effectiveness of the vaccine, but the efficacy under control condition, we have the data, and you find that most of them have been published. Okay, this is the New England Journal of Medicine or the Lancet, which are all peer-reviewed international paper. So when you publish that, everybody will screen through, and everybody will, all the people, all the smart fellows will, smart doctors and scientists will scrutinize your results. So you cannot get away. Okay. So you find that these are the data given, and most of them no major reaction, big studies, really big studies. Okay, and the only thing about them is that for Pfizer, you need to be stored in minus 72 degrees centigrade. Okay, that is because it's a live vaccine. So you can put up into 22 to 8 degrees, which is about the freezer section of our fridge, for about 5 days. But this is a major handicap, a major challenge for the vaccine. Moderna up minus 20, also a challenge, because most of our warehouse and storage do not have the facility to keep them at minus 70 or minus 20. Okay, most of our storehouses keep them at a freezer, which is about 2 to 8. So you find that the other vaccines can be kept at about 2 to 8. Okay, Janssen, okay, 1 to 2 degrees. Most of them are double dose. That means one dose, then second dose is 21 days. Okay, for Moderna, second dose is 28 days. Okay, Janssen, okay, the Johnson & Johnson one is only one single dose. So there are benefits for different vaccines. Now, what is the effectiveness? Okay, we do have data, okay, for the effectiveness of Pfizer vaccine, because the Israel has made a deal with Pfizer. that they will vaccinate up to 80% of their population if Pfizer gave them all the vaccine. And it started well ahead of everybody. And you find that they started in early December, and then with the they have so most of them have got a second dose, and we see that there is a significant difference. Okay, now we are talking about effectiveness. That means using that particular vaccine. Okay, a whole population, about 60% vaccinated now. From the monitoring shows that the vaccine is effective, okay, in certain groups. So I think that is something that we need to take note that, yeah, it's effective. How about the Sinovac, the Chinese vaccine? Okay. Well, we do not have all the data because China, for some reason, don't release all the data to, okay. But what they do is they release to the press. So what we have is what the press says. But even then, it is quite effective. How about the side effect? Now, I mean, aside from anaphylactic shock, we do get the common side effect, common to all vaccine. If you get the influenza vaccine, that's what you get: sore arm, headache, chills, tiredness, sick feeling, and all that. Okay, so use of human cell lines. Okay, human cell lines is that some of the vaccines need to be made in human cells, and only two human cells line are used. Okay, HEK293 and PERC66, which actually is about uh, many years ago, about 20, 30 years ago. These are the legally aborted cells. Okay, legally aborted cells, and from the stem cells, they are created into cell lines. Okay, cell lines are human cell lines, just cells in the test tube, not the fetus. And this cell line can be grown immortal, so you can actually test the vaccine on them. So whether we can use that or not, well, I think you have to think about it. That, yeah, the aborted, it was a legal abortion, so we do not know the reason for abortion, but the aborted fetus is doing some good. Okay, it may be a abortion, but the vaccine it used to put to nurture the vaccine. The vaccine is not made from them, but it's to nurture the vaccine. How about long-term immunity? Okay, we do not have the data for long-term. The most we have is about 6 months, and we know that the people who had COVID have antibodies for 6 months, sometimes longer. So we do not know what is the long term, but we do know that all those who have received the vaccine for about 4 months now still have antibodies. Okay, so we do not know the long term whether there is a need for a booster dose or not. Okay, how about the variant? Okay, you know that RNA is a very versatile virus. It keeps on mutating. That's why the flu vaccine, you know that we have to change the flu vaccine every 6 months, and we have to, when in the hospital, when we select flu vaccine, we have to select northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere because they're all different variants, because they keep on mutating. So we expected the SARS virus to mutate, the COVID virus to mutate. Okay, and we've now found that there are three major mutations: the UK variant, the South African variant, and the Brazil variant. Okay. So far the UK variant, most of the vaccine are effective. Okay, the African one, the AstraZeneca, found is slightly less effective against mild cases. How about human mutation? Okay, would because it's a RNA, also would you start be mutated, start growing an extra arm, extra limb, and all that? Well, definitely no. Because one thing is that even if it goes into the nucleus, it doesn't combine with the DNA of the person. So there's no way it can mutate. How about mark of the beast? Okay, there are people who say that, oh yeah, now you shouldn't take it because that will give you the mark of the beast. Now, if you look at Revelation, chapter 13, verse 16, 17, okay, the Apostle John is not talking about vaccination or anything. He's talking about who is your idol. Do you worship God or you worship the beast? Okay, so I don't think that we can in any way justify using the COVID vaccine as the number 666. Even though I know some people have found the the word corona equals 666. Whether you can have a microchip, okay? They, I don't know why Bill Gates is involved, but they're saying that Bill Gates is building a microchip to put into the vaccine. But you find that there's no RFID technology. Okay, this is fact check that there's no such thing to fit into a needle injection. So you find that people will talk about all this. So just be careful when you hear that. Does it make sense or not? So next week, our week after next, we are hoping for a roll up. Okay, Malaysia so far has is buying Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Sinovac, uh, CanSino, and Sputnik. Okay, you find that actually look at the dosage we are buying. Okay, majority, about 32 million Pfizer. Okay, and the Sputnik is about 6.4, 2.4, and the Sinopharm is about 12. So the majority is still Pfizer and AstraZeneca. Okay, the Chinese vaccine and the Russian vaccines are actually low amount. Okay, I think the reason is why we need both is that the RNA vaccine and the vector vaccine needs very cold storage. If it's not stored properly, the temperature goes up, it just become useless, become water. So you need vaccine that can be maintained in a simple cooler. Okay, so we have the roll up phase 1, 2, and 3.